Hey, it's Trigger here. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how movers and belts work in Minetorio. I've got a nice little demonstration set up here so I can easily go in and cover everything in a pretty quick succession and try to make everything as concise as I can because I want to try to keep these little tutorial videos on Minetorio pretty short. So we're going to go and start off with movers and belts because these are the backbone of any factory you're going to make in Minetorio. So yeah, let's go and get started with the really basic concept here. To start, movers are really simple. They basically move things from one container to another container. In this case, it's a chest to a chest, but this could be from a furnace to a chest, or backwards, a furnace to a chest, or a chest to a furnace, or a belt to a chest, or a furnace to a belt. You get the idea. So this is how you're going to move all your items around. Now, how might you get one of these? Well, you'll craft them. In the recipes, you can find them, or if you go to empty items, you can go ahead and click on the menu, or the logistics slot here, and you can see the mover here. If you want to see the crafting recipe for it, you can just left-click it, and then this should be the recipe. Now, keep in mind, admins can change the recipe of the mover, so it might be something different on your server. But generally speaking, it's a pretty easy craft to make. So going back anyways, if you wanted to grab one as an admin just to test and go along with the video, you can. You can just right-click this in this menu to grab one, or you can do shift right-click to add one, or you can shift left-click your hotbar if you need to make some room to delete an item quickly. In this case, I'm just going to go and grab a mover, a repeater, and a piece of carpet. These two here items are just here for admins for convenience sake. And to give little information to players, so to help people get a little information on the plugin and how it works. So yeah, anyways, going with the mover here, if I want to move an item from this chest to this chest, it's as easy as just slapping an item in here like this. Now, it's going to slowly move one item out at a time and put it in the chest next to it. This is the basic idea of how it all works. So now this here is how you would do a mover onto a belt, and to make this into a conveyor belt. Conveyor belts are just normal carpet. You don't need to make some sort of custom recipe for it. It's just carpet. It's really simple. And you can actually make a little factory using an auto shear with some sheeps to automate the process of making carpet, because you are going to need a lot of them, and I highly recommend doing that if you're playing in survival and you need a way to get lots of carpet. So this setup won't work though, because it's missing something. This is just a mover, as we would call it. So this just moves something from one container to another, but it doesn't create a belt on its own. It needs something else to do that. So in order to do that, this setup works. So in order for this to work, you have to put a repeater on it. A repeater on the top of a mover turns this into what I call a motorized mover. This means now that this here is now going to be a conveyor belt. And the way we can test this and see that it's actually working is if we go to the not working one in order to put some carpets in here, you'll see that nothing's going to happen. That's because it's not motorized. It's not going to put something on this because technically this isn't a conveyor belt, it's just a piece of carpet. In order to make this into a conveyor belt, you have to obviously open this up, put some carpet in there, and have the repeater here. Now you'll see the items get put onto the belt. This is really useful because whenever you're testing something out, you need to understand that you need to have this repeater. This repeater also has a few other functions to it as well. And if you open it up, the chest here, you see we've got our carpet, but I want it to only be on one side of the belt, or let's say I want it to alternate. Well, if I right-click this and I go and take these off, I can shift right-click to take items off the belt, just like that. And you'll see now, with the first delay on the repeater, all the items are going on the right side of the belt. If I were to set it to the second delay, all the items will now go on the right side of the belt. This can be useful because you might have a case where you only need an item to go on one side of the belt, or for whatever reason. It just gives you the ability to have this control if you want. There is also a third mode, which is the alternating mode, which means that it will try to put items on the alternating sides of the belt. Keep in mind, this is only going to work, though, if there's a backlog of items. Otherwise, it'll always default to the left side because it has to flip back and forth. So it's not necessarily always going to alternate, but if you have a surplus of items, it should be alternating. Now, that can be useful if you're trying to balance your belts out, and you want to make sure that one side of your factory gets some carpets, or let's say it's an items, carpets an example. Let's say you want one side of the factory to get it, and then you want another side to get it. You can split this up by using the movers in another fashion, which we'll get to here shortly. So this is just another example here, extending it. This also works you'll notice that this mover here doesn't have a repeater above it. That's because this repeater, or this mover, is just a mover. It doesn't need, it's just moving something from one conveyor belt to a container. So it's very much so like this setup here. Because it's not moving across a belt, it doesn't need a repeater. It's not necessary. So it's pretty important to understand this difference. And if you couldn't tell already, the direction that the mover is facing, the little face on it, that's the direction that the belt will be created. A motorized mover, it will never create a belt going backwards. So if you were to put carpet behind this, like this is not going to be created into a belt. And you can test this like really easily just by simply putting a chest behind it here and doing this. Because if this was a conveyor belt, this would have created it, but that's not how it works. It always goes in the direction it's facing. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so yeah, we'll just show off this next part. So if I put some items into here, let's just mix up and do some grass. We'll see that I'll put it on both sides of the belt here. And this is going to grab from both sides and insert it here into this chest. Perfect. All right. That is the really basics of the movers and how they work, and just how you create conveyor belts. Hopefully it's not too confusing. Moving on to the next part. This part is going to have a lot on it, and that's because there's actually multiple things I'm going to be showing here. So first, let's show off another name for the movers. So when a mover grabs something off of a belt, so for example, like this mover right here, you can see is facing this chest. This chest is what we call a grabber. You'll see it doesn't have a repeater above it, which means it's not motorized because there's no need for it to be motorized. It's just moving it from one container to another, which this belt is a container, quote unquote, because it can hold 2 items. But it's only going to be able to grab from the left side or the right side of the belt here because its back side, the opposite side of its front face, the back, is facing the belt here. But it's not on the top of it or the bottom of it, so it's only going to be able to grab from the closest side, which here, in this case is on the left. So this is what we call a grabber. And now the opposite of this is what we call an inserter. So this is an inserter where the face is facing the belt and has a container here. Not to be confused with a motorized mover, because notice that it doesn't have a repeater above it because it's not necessary. And in fact, if you were to put another repeater here on top of this, this circuit would not work. The conveyor belts would fight. If this was a motorized mover, these would fight each other for control of the belt, and it just simply wouldn't work. You would basically expect some sort of odd behavior to happen. So yes. Moving on though. So yeah, this is what we call an inserter, and this is a grabber. You're going to notice on the other side I have the exact same setup. You have an inserter here and a grabber here, except for they have levers on the top of them. The orientation of these levers don't matter. They can be facing any direction. I just for my OCD, I put them the same way. This makes a mover into like a grabber or an inserter. In this case, it's an inserter. This is an overrided inserter. So an inserter with an override means that instead of only placing an item, in this case, if it was this inserter, it would only place it on this side of the belt. This one has the capability of placing it on both sides of the belt. So yeah, that's gonna, let me just close this stuff real quick here then. Okay, so that'll insert on both sides of the belt. And likewise, for the grabber, you can override it and make it grab from both sides of the belt. Now, keep in mind, these are just levers. You don't need any custom items or anything. You just slap a lever on the top and boom, there you go. You're all done. This can be extremely useful when let's say you have an auto smelting setup and you want a furnace to grab coal and one resource like iron, like raw iron. You could have coal on one side of the belt and iron on the other side, and the mover could take both of them from both sides of the belt and put it inside of the furnace. Super useful. Talking about furnaces, so down here we have a mover right here, and you can't see the front face, but the back face is here because you can see the left and right side. So that means the front face must be facing this way. This here is just a combustion generator, which is a custom device in Minetorio, and then over here we have a just normal furnace. Now, if we want this is just to show that the mover also interacts with other things. It doesn't have to be a chest. It could be a custom item from Minetorio, which we refer to as devices. Devices have input slots and output slots. In this case, the combustion generator doesn't allow you to actually put smelt resources in it. However, you can put fuel in it. So let's go ahead and just put a bunch of coal here and see what happens. For this demonstration, I'm going to probably end up removing some of this stuff here, but here, we'll just put some coal in the belt. throwing some coal in the belt here. You're going to see the inserters aren't going to do anything, but these guys are going to take everything. As you can see, this guy is the overrider. He's getting priority and taking everything at once. So let's just say that we need the coal to get down the line. Well, how can we do this? Well, don't forget, you can open up the mover. I'm sure you've seen me open it a couple times. You can see it has the main mover on it. This means that we can put a filter on it, because right now, this item, currently, the mover anyways, is currently in just a normal mode. It's going to just take everything with no restrictions. If I wanted to restrict it, all I could do is simply say, hey, if I want you to take only a specific item, let's just say I'm going to do redstone. I'll put redstone in here. Now, this grabber is on a whitelist mode, and it'll only grab redstone. I'm going to do the same thing here. This way our coal can actually get down the line. So let's go ahead and grab this coal again. Back on the line. And we're going to see the grabbers are not going to take the coal now, which is awesome. Now, if you wanted to invert this from a whitelist into like a blacklist or whatnot, you could just simply get a wire tool, which is a component item in the MT items menu. You can go to the components, or sorry, the tools and weapons. And the very first item is a wire tool. When you have a wire tool in your hand, you can right-click this, and this will turn it to a blacklist. When you do this, it's now going to say that any item is allowed in here except for redstone. All right, so we'll go ahead and undo that here. So now it's back to an allow list there. All right, so now if we go and check this out, we can see our furnace here has some coal in it. You'll notice that it's not going to fill it up all the way up to 64. That's because for devices and unique containers like furnaces, for example, they're not going to fill all the way up to 64. They'll fill up to one, I think it's, how much would that be? Wait a second, sorry, well, it's a little different. So it's the stack size divided by 8 plus 1. The plus 1 is used for other devices like the crafter, because if you wanted to craft a redstone block, you need 9. So 8 wouldn't be enough, so it's stack size divided by 8. If not, it's always a minimum of 3 stack size if it's some weird number, like let's say it only stacks to 8 or something. This allows other furnaces and other devices further down your lines like this to actually get access to a resource, because if this was 64 and this belt was much longer with more furnaces on it, the first one would basically suck up all of the coal, and which would be a little annoying. But this still allows it to have a buffer, just not a huge buffer. And you can see over here that this combustion generator also is now producing power and is using some of the coal. All right, perfect. So, yeah, I made sure to cover filters. So that's pretty much that. Moving on to the next part, we have colored belts. Some people don't know, and I've tried to include in the guides, that colored belts do not mix. So this motorized mover, for example, will only put items on the red belt because motorized movers do consider the color of the carpet in front of them, and that will be their color. So I can demonstrate this by simply, let's just say I'm going to put some carpet in here. Oh, actually, because these chests, let's redo this chest. Let's do it like this. And we're going to do that and this. So you can see that this one has the redstone, but redstone is only going to be allowed on the green belt. It'll never cross over to the red belt, and the red belt has the carpet because there's carpet in here, and the red will never cross over to the green. This is really useful for when your factory is getting super spaghetti-like. You can see down here that this double chest here is connected by both of these now. Pretty nice and nifty. This is an example of what happens when you don't have them colored. If I am going to put some redstone here, and the carpet's here, you're going to see some weird behaviors. So in this case, they're fighting over these two belts. They're spitting out their items. The redstone belt is putting out its item, but then the carpet one here is moving it out and trying to go this way, which is blocking the belt. Keep in mind, the direction is somewhat random on the pathway it decides to take when you mix belts together. In general, you can never have two motorized motors on the same belt. So that means that there should never be one repeater like this and a mover like this on a belt. There should always be one, never two. Otherwise, you'll get this lock-up like this. Okay, so moving on, we're going to go down here. I'm going to show some movement for the movers to give a demonstration of how much movement there is to them. So this is a motorized belt. It has a carpet. Your belts can go up and down, and then they can also be moved downwards. So this mover right here, switch to spectator, goes downwards. You can see its face is facing this way, and then there's a motorized mover right here as well that moves it here, and then there is an upward mover here, which you can't really see, but its face is right there. Well, so let's go and demonstrate it, shall we? Put some redstone in here. We'll see that it's going to go up. It's going to go this way. Now it's going to start getting picked up here into this chest, and then this mover moves it into here. Perfect. You see it's going up, down, too. Alright, so that is a full range of movement. So you can go up one block and down one block. However, you cannot cut the pathway off, which you're not supposed to be able to. Likely what will end up happening is when this belt gets rebuilt, if I destroy this and build a new one, the belt isn't going to work anymore because the connection was severed. So this is a bug where sometimes it'll work through, but it's not intended for you to go through corners like that. So yeah, we'll go and rebuild the belt. You can always rebuild a belt simply just by breaking a belt and then putting down one of the pieces back. That always will make it reconfigure its pathway again. So yeah, just make sure that you have clear access up and down, and you're good to go. If you need to go up or down, like more than one, like in a straight line, then just use a mover facing up or down. This is just a little interesting thing to show with movers. Sometimes movers, there's movers in between here. Every other one, there's a combustion generator, mover, combustion generator. Movers can will only selectively take items out of slots. So in this case, the movers will only selectively take an item out from the combustion generator's fueling slot. This is because there's, well, one, there's nothing else to take out, but if it was, for example, like a furnace over here, like a normal furnace, if we tried to take out an item, it would only take out the, it can only take out the smelted slot, so it only targets certain slots. So in this case, if I were to put a chest here and put some coal in it, you're going to see that the coal is going to get moved down this, and you're going to see these little ones light up. That's because the coal is going into the fuel slot here, and the mover is moving it into this one, and then that coal slot is getting moved by the mover into this one, and then this one is getting moved down here at the end. So eventually what we're going to see is that this is going to back up. This is actually like a really easy setup for the early game for a combustion generator setup if you don't feel like manually hand feeding your furnaces or your combustion generators, because combustion generators are very good and easy, quick and dirty, easy power source. So it's a very good way to get a bunch of power really quickly. And I could show off the demonstration again, but we'll show it with furnaces perhaps. So let's go ahead and put down a furnace, and we're going to do a mover into a chest to further demonstrate what I'm talking about. So we're going to grab some coal and then some raw iron. We're going to go ahead and put the coal and iron in here, and you're going to see that you're noticing the mover isn't grabbing the coal. That's because it's not going to move it out of this fuel slot because it's not a furnace in front of it. The furnace doesn't need the coal, so why would it move it? But it is going to take the smelted slot. You also notice it's not taking the raw iron. It shouldn't take the raw iron because there's no need to take the raw iron. It needs to be smelted here in the furnace. But the iron ingot definitely needs to go, so the mover's taking it. So yeah, very simple demonstration. Sometimes they'll only take certain items from a device. This is more prevalent for something like a crafter or other devices where they only need a certain amount of an item, and you only need to take, they have like a lot of ingredients stored in it, but you only want to take the result. In this case, the smelting result is the furnace. And if it was an assembler, we take the result slots of that item. And don't forget, this is super useful. One of my favorite setups to do is to do a really early game automated storage system, because it's super easy to do. You can do something like this. I can just get them to place correctly, that is. Like this. And then you have a belt on the back side. Belt. You have a belt like right here. Put a mover here with a chest. And now if you put a mover in each one of these like this, you can set a filter on this. So let's say I want carpet to go here. Then carpet will go in this chest, and then it'll always be grabbed immediately and go here, and then all the other items will keep going down here. And so let's just say it's like you know, a carpet block here, or redstone in this one. Then redstone will go here, and then just you can keep doing filters to organize everything, which is just a really easy setup to do early on. But the annoying part is like right here, how do I put this mover down and keep it like facing nicely? I can do it this way, just a bit of a pain in the butt. Let's just say I didn't have the roof access here, and there was like a block like this, and I can't reach it over here. Well, there's a really nice little trick you can do where you can go like this. Put these down, and then hit the swap button, which is F. And you can swap the mover. I was hitting the carpet block here, so I had to tweak that a little bit. But so if I stay on top of them here, I can just hit F on them and flip them. In this case, I flipped that one backwards. But you can flip the rotation of these, which is really nice, really convenient. So yeah, you can just hit F on them and just swaps the direction they're facing. So now they'll pull off the belt, and it can just work the way I want it to. The other thing to consider with this is that if you have items in the chest, you could do some quirky things like this, where I have a bunch of carpets here. If I do this, it's going to start moving the carpets over. I could do that back too. You can actually use this for some little gimmicky setups where you are doing like really early game crafting, and you just want to have some items in an advanced assembler or a basic assembler, but you don't want to constantly have to change a recipe or take the ingredients out. So yeah, the last thing I want to show is the wire tool. This is really nice if you're new, and it can help you get a really good idea of the direction that belts are moving just at a glance. So when your belts get really long in a factory, sometimes it can be a little difficult to tell where they're going if it's at a standstill. If you pull out your wire tool, one of the things it does is it will create two drops. The blue is the starting point, where the motorized belt is identifying the color of the carpet, and that is the carpets it's using. And then you can see here that it's ending here. Let's go ahead and draw this out so I can kind of demonstrate the effect that actually happens now a little better. So now that we're drawing this out, you're going to see that this is going to start pulsing, and then once the droplets go down, you're now going to see the direction that it's traveling really easily. You can see the spiraling direction it's traveling now. So yeah, it's pretty useful. The wire tool also does a few other things too, like you can see the direction of your power grid. So you might see these little floating particles everywhere. Well, that's because it's going off of our combustion generators here. These are creating our power grid, and so the little yellow boundary area is actually the boundary of our power grid. You'll see that there's also the spiral effect on this as well, kind of help visualize the actual borders of your power grid. And your power grids are spherical, so keep in mind as you travel up, you'll notice that the boundaries will shrink. That's because it's basing it off of the Y level you're currently at, so it just gets smaller and smaller until it goes away. And it only shows particles in the direction you're looking for performance reasons. And that's pretty much it. There's a lot to movers. Pretty much have covered everything, especially the modes that they have. There's also a wiki that you can check out too that has more information. I'll be making more videos like this and posting them when I get the chance to make them and get them out there. But yeah, I just wanted to get a little video out there just showing everything there is to know about movers. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you'll check out the resource if you want to. Hopefully, I mean, I imagine you're probably watching it, but check out the resource if you haven't, if you watch this video randomly. Check it out. You can always get updates on the Discord as well, or you can, of course, check out Spigot and see if I post it on there. I typically post updates once a week at a minimum. Most of the time, I post multiple times a week. Anyways, yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see y'all around in the next video.